ADHD is not a superpower, but it's not an inevitable struggle either.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Brad Hebner, and today I have guest Skye Waterson with Unconventional Organization to talk about something that I think a lot of us struggle with. So, Skye, welcome to the show.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into the topic, which I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, give us just a little bit of background about who you are, what you do, and how you got to here.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting journey. I'm a former academic who burned out really hard, a lot, but particularly between my master's and my PhD. And at the beginning of my PhD, I found out that I had ADHD, and that was the reason that I was struggling. And that pushed me into a world of researching systems for my own brain, looking into the neuroscience behind it, looking into how it works, and then building a business that helps other people do the same. Along that journey, I really became very passionate about business systems, building the support for business owners specifically, because so many people with ADHD go into business, and it is an opportunity, but it's also a real struggle if you don't have the systems. And so that's what I do now with Unconventional Organization.
Awesome. So, I mean, it sounds like you basically created your business, but it came out of a need for yourself to solve your own
Everything started with me being like, how the heck am I going to get anything done without burning out? Yeah.
So how long have you been working with businesses then, specifically on the organization?
So I grew the business of Unconventional Organization to about 6 figures before we switched only to business owners. We used to work with professionals in general. And the shift to businesses is just because, one, it's a big passion of mine. I love business. I'll talk about business acquisition and marketing and systems like that all day. And I love learning more and more about that. But two, it's because, there's a very specific way of being when you're voluntary. And you said it just before we jumped on here. You're the arsonist and the firefighter in your own business. And that is very true. And so unlike working with a boss, where at the end of the day, the buck stops with them, the ability to grow revenue stops with them, and a lot of other things stop with them, you have unlimited potential and unlimited ability to ruin your own reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no one there to tell you what to do or, to stop doing something or any of that. So well, let's get into, I'm sure we'll cover a couple different areas, but if I have ADHD, I'm functional. I've been dealing with it most of my life. Like, why is it important for me to actually get help with this?
It's usually about potential. So a lot of times people will struggle to work to their potential. They might be behind, like when we look at the research, for example, they might be behind other people, their peers, who have gone on to maybe grow bigger businesses and have more stable staffing situations, things like that. And you feel like you're always fighting fires. You're waking up, you're having those couple of good days where you're like, man, if I could just keep hitting those amazing days, this would be great. But then a lot of the rest of it is you start the day, you're feeling behind, there's chaos, you fight fires, you don't build momentum in your business. Something happens with a client, you're back, you're behind, and that overwhelm follows you around. And it doesn't have to be like that. A lot of times people feel very trapped because they're using systems that don't work for how their brain works. And they are, as a result, they're not working to their capacity. I hear this a lot from people. I could be doing more. I just don't know how.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like this sometimes too. You said you feel like you're not living up to your full potential.
Yeah.
Right. And so I get to witness, I have this thrown in my face almost daily because my wife is an overachiever. And she, doesn't have ADHD, and she can, focus on something and from start to finish and knock it out. I mean, she probably does 60 hours, a week worth of work in like 30 hours because she's so amazing at it. Whereas I get started on stuff and it's like, all right, distraction, let's try something else. And so I can see that. I mean, I get to see, like, obviously if I live in a silo and didn't talk to anyone else, I wouldn't know that I was different. Like, I would think this is normal, right? I would think that this is just how it is. to live with ADHD. But because I have that backdrop of someone who doesn't have it, it's like night and day difference. It's blaringly right in front of my face. So how do we, like I've never been diagnosed. I've never went to a psychiatrist or whoever, psychologist, whoever, and said, oh, you have ADHD. But what are some things that would help me recognize, if I've never been diagnosed, what would help me recognize that I may have ADHD?
Yeah. And a lot of people I speak to and work with don't get diagnosed. You don't need to get diagnosed to work on these systems and strategies.
Sure.
But the conversation, it's funny you say in a silo. In some cases, the problem is that you're not in a silo. Because not only are you in a position where you have seen your wife really knock things out, but you were also taught a system that is designed for your wife's brain and not for your brain. And so you are kind of sometimes working against systems that work for you. So if I give you some examples of what that looks like, if you're in a position where you work a day that involves, I got to go to site, I've got to come home, I've got to do some admin, I've got to have a meeting, I've got to deal with a client. We struggle with transition times with ADHD. So having all of these different things in one day makes it really hard for us to get any deep work done. Other things can be, I am in a position where people expect me and I expect myself to, if somebody says, hey, could you just make sure that you contact so-and-so about XYZ? You go, yeah, no worries. And you don't write it down. You just expect you're going to remember it. That doesn't happen with ADHD. Working memory is a real struggle. Time blindness. Someone says, when is this job going to get finished? Which is a huge problem, with, these kinds of businesses forecasting jobs. You're going, tomorrow, end of the week. Like that's kind of the, and that is 100%, the scope of that is you're overestimating what you can get done in that period of time. So time blindness, transition times, working memory struggles, dopamine, you get a couple of good months and you start going like, oh, what if we did this thing? And you start throwing some like curveballs into your own business because you're used to the business being the source of dopamine for you. These are usually what you're seeing in people who struggle with ADHD symptoms.
Would you agree that it's almost a curse if you have ADHD as an owner, entrepreneur, and your business is like a well-oiled machine where there's not really anything, like it's almost a curse because you feel like you have to fix something or change something?
Yeah. And it can be, we talk about that everyone wants to make, that first million. They want to be that $1 million business owner. One of the struggles that we have is like you can grind it out in the 6-figure space. In the 7-figure space, you should probably have a consistent system that's working and working well. But with ADHD, especially if you're the kind of person who's been getting a lot of dopamine from your business, and a lot of times the people I work with work really, really hard. The last time they did something fun for themselves is like they can't even remember. I was talking to a trainee about this the other day and they were like, I don't know, go to the gym. Like, what do I do for fun? And so the idea of like the business is where I'm getting my dopamine. The business is where I'm getting my sense of pride, my sense of like, excitement in the week, getting those deals done, et cetera, can actually mean that when things are going well, then you start to throw some curveballs in, you take on a bit too much work, you overhire or you underhire, or you try and get back on the job even though you technically shouldn't be doing that. Things like that can start to derail your ability to actually just keep going, keep scaling to that $1 million mark.
Yeah, I think it's the boring, right? Like once you hit boring in your business, then the shiny object syndrome is just like
100%
all over the place.
Yeah. And that's what we talk about that, you won't find in other business programs is like people being like, yeah, I want to do this thing. And yes, that will triple my revenue, but it's super boring and I don't want to do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm transitioning in my own business. And so like when you first start a business, everything's exciting. It's new, you got all these problems you got to solve, everything to work out. But as you're working out, problems, you have fewer. The problems are always coming, but they're different. Mm-hmm. Some of the operational stuff is worked out. Mm-hmm. And then it starts to get more into like what I call production work, where you're not creating so much, you're just pulling the lever every day, like you're on an assembly line, and that can definitely get boring very quick for someone with ADHD.
Yeah, especially when, okay, you're pulling the lever and now you have to think about, how do I pull the lever better? How do I increase the volume on this? How do I build the systems and processes around this? How do I delegate this? Like, there's a lot of like pulling the lever well, and that becomes, a lot of it feels like you want to go do something else, but you actually have to throw yourself back into the system and the problems that you're already having to improve them, to make them more of that well-oiled machine.
Yeah, that's my problem though. I don't want to pull the lever. Like, that's the boring part. Like, I want to build a machine, that has the lever. But once the machine's built, I don't want to be the one standing there pulling the lever.
100%.
And so, but when you're small or you're trying to grow, like, you have to do some of those things. That's the grinding part of it. Even if you have employees, they're not going to be, you're still going to be doing some of the daily task type stuff, that what I would consider to be boring admin stuff. And that's just part of it. I mean, you have to deal with that, but it's easy to see how I talk to clients all the time. I talked to one the last week, maybe a few days ago, and he's like, well, I got this problem, I got 20 employees, we're doing a lot of money, and and on the side I started another business too to try and help this business. And it's like, okay, I see what's going on.
Yeah. And if you're under, one of my mentors says something that I try and live by, which is, if you're under $1 million, you should only have one business. You should only be selling one thing.
Probably if you're under 10 million, you should have one business, but definitely if you're under 1 million.
Yeah, but at least under $1 million, like keep to that focus, because so much of what you're doing is about that. It's about focusing. But again, with ADHD, without the strategies, and this is the thing that I really want people to understand, is like, ADHD is not a superpower, but it's not an inevitable struggle either. It's strong strengths in certain areas, like creative problem solving, creative thinking, getting yourself out of a jam. You've probably got yourself out of a ton of them in your lifetime. And strong weaknesses around admin, around consistency. And so if we can build systems to manage those weaknesses, then we can go and live more in your strength space. And that's where you really start to see people become very successful business owners with ADHD, and in some ways because of ADHD.
Yeah, because they're, especially if they recognize that, then they understand they have to hire for their weaknesses.
Exactly.
Or for what I would consider to be a distraction. Tasks that I have to do, but really it's a distraction because I don't really want to do it. And it's like, man, I don't want to do this. So I hire people to do that stuff, and that frees up my mental capacity to focus on things that are more important.
Exactly. Hire and delegate effectively. It's kind of both, because, a lot of times people will hire and then I'll come back and I'll be like, cool, so what's that person doing? Oh, I just let them have free reign, but they don't read my mind, so we're going to fire them. Like that kind of energy can be a lot. And I worked with, I was talking to some other woman who runs a podcast for people in trades, and everybody thinks that they can't find good guys or good people. It's the number one thing I hear. If only I could find good people, my business would be better. But the truth is, you need systems to make average people good, and that's what these business building systems are.
Gotcha. Okay, I want to dive into that some more, but before I do, I've heard a version of this where it's like a lot of successful, CEOs and entrepreneurs are successful because they have ADHD. Like that's their superpower. Is that fact or crap?
Well, like I said before, it's not their superpower. It's their strength that is different from other people. So if you think about it from a, environmental perspective, while other people are like struggling to move in a market or come up with new ideas, they're going and coming up with new ideas and moving in the market, and all of those kinds of things are really, really great. But they also should be managing their weaknesses. So they've either like gotten to a revenue point where they can hire a really good team around them to like action their steps, or they build systems and structures to keep that consistency. Or sometimes they get super lucky and they like just, dig a tunnel to $1 million. And by the time they get there, everything works around them. That happens too. Sure. But usually when someone says to me like, oh, ADHD is my superpower, it like has zero downside, there's a team around them that are going like, yeah, there are a few downsides. Don't tell it. But, but they are managing those downsides for them. So usually it's about, when I'm working with somebody and they have ADHD, it's about going, let's respect your strengths, but also manage your weaknesses. Most of the time you have to do both.
Yeah, it seems like people that are I personalities, if you know the disc, where they're like very outgoing, very, they're people, they love people, people pleasers or people, I guess. They love talking to people. They love being around people. It's just, the relationship side is really important to them, and they have ADHD. The people that have that are I personalities that have ADHD, that have managed to build a team because they're really good at, the relationship for hiring.
Yeah.
I've seen those people, personally, where they build a team, and then whenever they go into the office or they're trying to do something and they really don't know what they're doing, the team is like, hey, why don't you just leave and let us do it, because you're going to screw everything up if you come in here and start messing with it. And which, in my opinion, is a good thing. That's what you want, right? That's the team and the systems that can do it. But it seems like it's easier for people that are I personalities to be able to build that team. I'm a D personality, very direct, very blunt, and so I have to put a lot of effort into the relationship side of it. And it seems sometimes to be harder to hire. Do you think the personalities play into that at all?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't work with personality. I mostly work with ADHD, which is its own strengths and weaknesses. What I will say is that if you have a natural aptitude for hiring, it will be easier for you. But at the end of the day, because I do work with people who have those kinds of personalities, and so they've hired an amazing team. But you still have to show up as a leader. And a lot of the times, I'll work with entrepreneurs who are making multiple millions of dollars in their business, but they don't have the confidence that they need to really direct and lead their business, because they're kind of being told like, oh, well, just go off and do your thing, like, be a good face and we'll do the rest of it and that kind of thing. When really what I try and teach and what I want to teach is that inbuilt confidence of like, no, this is the area I'm good at. This is the area I struggle in. This is where you're good at stuff. This is where you struggle. And we're like working together to build that system together.
Let's get into like how do we delegate? Like how do we do that? I want to hire people. How do I delegate?
Yeah. Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to actually give you time, because a lot of times when I work with business owners, they'll come to me and they'll say, hiring, delegating, I have 200 things that are on fire that I have to do right now. And you're never going to convince me there's less than 200. And I actually have a system that I've taught for years now. I taught this with individuals, and now I teach it with entrepreneurs. Most people, 99% of people, do not have more than 5 truly urgent things on their task list. So actually I have an AI bot that walks you through this. So if you message me Brad at Unconventional Organization on Instagram, I'll send that to you and it'll kind of walk you through these steps, because it's helpful to have that kind of support. But let me talk you through kind of how it works today, because it is pretty simple. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to go ahead and you want to brain dump. You want to brain dump everything that is in your head into a thing that you're going to reuse. So we don't want to use back of a napkin or something like that. Let's grab a journal, let's grab a doc, and we want to write down every single task that is in your head. So it could be a home task, a work task. We don't discriminate, but don't look at your email, don't look at your other task list. Just go with what's in your head. Once you've done that, what I want you to do is I want you to look at that list, and I want you to identify what has to be done in the next 24 hours, or there will be a significant external negative consequence. And you might think at this point, okay, I'm doing the Eisenhower matrix. You're not. The Eisenhower matrix is quite difficult with ADHD, but what you are doing is you're doing a filtering mechanism. And so one of the ways that I get people to think about this is, imagine your day goes sideways and you end up in a waiting room, and you're going to be in that waiting room all day. Like, that is what is happening with your day. What is the stuff that you would still do on your phone, or you would have to contact someone and say, I'm not going to be able to do this tomorrow because I couldn't get prepped for it today? Those are the things that are truly hitting that urgent space. Once you go through this, you'll really start to narrow down what's urgent, which is important, because a lot of times what is urgent and what is easy to tick off tends to have a complicated relationship with each other, and we'll be like, oh, well, it would be nice if this got done, and this would be easy to do, and this was somebody else's urgent, and we'll put all of those things on our list. And in reality, what our job is, especially as CEOs, is it's not to tick off our task list. It's to do the things that have to be done. And then with the space that's left, work on the things that are going to move the needle in our business and make life easier for us and everyone else in the long term.
Makes sense. Okay, so brain dump everything, all our tasks that we need to get done, and then prioritize that. And I like the what's the word? Not illustration, but the visual. I like the visual of being in the ER or in a waiting room or whatever, where you're forced to have to delegate things to someone else, and those are like your priority things that we need to focus on first. So okay, so is that all the steps part as far as like prioritizing the list?
For the first process, so this is a multi-step process, and like I said, the AI walks you through it. If you want, you can just grab that and it'll kind of take you through those steps. But this is the first thing we want to do, which is take you from, I have a million things to do today, to I have 4 things to do today. I actually have time, because most of the time, when I work with people, they feel overwhelmed, they don't have enough time, and their revenue is inconsistent. So we want to figure out how to focus them, how to give them their time back, which is actually not that complicated once you learn how to prioritize and how to actually start. And then how to understand how to grow consistent revenue. And that's where the conversation of the 80-20 comes in. Often when I work with business owners, they come to me and they have a wish list. They have a house of cards. I want to do this. I need to do some outreach. I'm going to start some paid ads, but I'm also going to hand out flyers, and I'm getting my car redone, and I'm doing that, we're doing this all at once. I've got the energy, I've got the enthusiasm, as long as nothing breaks and no clients, no people get sick, no clients cancel, for whatever reason, nobody gets locked out of the house, we should all be good.
Hey, just a quick time out from the show. If you're a frustrated contractor who's dealing with low profit margins, stuck working on the tools every day, or doing free estimates for people who are never going to hire you in the first place, I invite you to my private contractor community, the Profit Club, where contractors just like you are adding 2 to 3 times more profit each year without producing any more jobs, and finally getting completely off the tools to never do another free estimate again. So if you're ready to increase your profits, stop doing free estimates, and get off the tools, then all you have to do is click the link in the show notes to learn more about the Profit Club and see how it can easily 2 to 3 times the cash in your pocket, give you a proven sales process that will convert more jobs with ease and get you off the tools once and for all. And the best part is you can do all of this without having to produce more jobs than you currently are. Click the link to learn more. Now let's get back to the show.
And in reality, that never happens. And so the whole house of cards falls down, and people get stuck picking up the pieces, and they have to start all over again. And they do this again and again and again. And for some people, they've done this for years, built a house of cards, had it knock over, come back, done it again. What I teach people how to do, and what's particularly difficult for ADHD, because our brains do not necessarily naturally want to do this, is I teach people how to go in and go, okay, what is the first domino that you need to knock over that's going to make all the other dominoes easier to hit? So what is the first thing for you? Is it acquisition? Do we have to increase your lead flow pipeline? Is it delivery? Is it the fact that you're not actually getting those quotes down? I mean, I've worked with people who are like, I'm struggling with cash flow. And I'm like, okay, well, how many invoices have you not paid? They're like, about 30. So, this is the conversation that we have. We need to figure out what is the first thing that if you did it, it would have a huge impact positively on your revenue, on your business growth, and why you're not doing it. Because it's usually, when we're talking about ADHD, something like it's boring, it's confusing, it's emotionally vulnerable, I can't find guys, all of those conversations.
Yeah, all the things that we hate doing, so we don't do them.
Yeah. And that's the craziest part, is for most people, there's something that you could do that would make your business 3x. I've seen people do 3x in the first 30 days working with us. And you're not doing it because of some kind of ADHD block that you're just, not aware of how to fix.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. So once we've prioritized that, what's the next step?
The next step is to do it. That's what I do. When you ask,
do I have to do it though, or can I get someone else to do it?
Well, this is the tricky part. So usually you have to do it, or you have to learn how to delegate it. So I have a process where I teach people how to delegate without actually doing the task. So yeah, sometimes the first thing we have to do is delegate it, but it really, it depends on a couple of things. It depends on who is doing it, but even the delegating is a task, right? So usually we're in a position where we're going, okay, there's two things. One of these two things is usually broken first. Either you're not getting enough clients, you're not getting enough leads, or you've got too many, you're not delivering. So you've got capacity issues. So usually when I'm working with people in trades, the next thing we have to do is either we need to hire somebody to fix the capacity issue, or we need to give somebody more jobs or build out a system where people can see what's coming up, or we need to go in and look at your lead flow and actually how to build you out some earned media, paid ads kind of system. And so we don't get to just throw that at somebody and run away. That's unfortunately not how it works. There are ways to make delegation a lot easier. I use AI to help people, and I have a little GPT actually that you can use internally in our community that will let you brain dump and then come up with an SOP that you can hand to somebody, and then they have a meeting with you to double check it. But often the first thing we have to do is even identify who's going to be that person for you in your business, because a lot of times it's a tricky one. I've worked with people who have really, really big businesses and they still don't have somebody in admin, for example.
Yeah. I mean, I've ran into contractors like that too, where they, they've gotten to where they're at because they've grinded hard.
Yeah.
And then they haven't hired an admin. And I remember I didn't hire an admin for years.
Oh yeah.
And then once I finally hired an office manager, I was like, I have no idea how I ran this business without one.
And again, this is the conversation about, you said in a silo, you might not notice. Well, in a silo, you'd probably hire an admin because it would be super annoying not to have one. But when you're somebody who doesn't have ADHD struggles, the advice is, well, don't hire an admin because you're great at that stuff. And, hire a team who can get on the job and work the job. But the problem is, and this is a particular issue when we're working in construction or places like that, is it's a little bit harder to delegate to somebody who just wants to go to a job site and fix the problem on the site and go home, and so you want to give them the job of managing the site or making sure, this is some things that are particularly helpful. I've worked with, I've worked with clients who've really benefited from having a system, there's so many of those digital systems now that will do logs and quotes and things like that. And just setting up a system where you're okay, at 4:00 every day, the team has to take a photo of the site and give me an update. Even that stuff is, for some people, that's the first thing that lets them get out of having to go down to the job site all the time.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I'd like to do this and maybe we can't. I mean, it's not, this is just for demonstration, but like I said, I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. I just hired an operations assistant. She starts December 1st. Okay. So me as a CEO, whatever, owner with ADHD, and I have an assistant. As far as delegating tasks or setting up systems for that, what do I need to know? What should I
Great question. So the first thing we want to do is we want to actually draw out your business. So we do something called an SOP pipeline. And what that looks like is we just want to grab a digital space, and I have templates, and, when I work with people, that's how I do it, and draw out a sense of, okay, how do you get clients? So the first thing I'd ask you is, okay, how do you get clients? How do you quote them? How do you sell to them? How do they accept the quote? How do you do the job? What does that flow look like for you? And then the next thing we want to look at is, which part of that is the most broken right now? Now, I'm not going to ask you that on your own podcast, but that would be the next question that I would ask. You. Yep, go for it. Go for it.
Broken is getting leads.
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
That's, finding leads is the biggest.
So then the next
struggle.
question that I'd have for you is, okay, do you want to do SEO, paid ads, or earned media? Like what's worked in the past for you?
Well, actually, it's social media has worked. Organic social media has worked way better than paid ads. Okay,
cool. So if organic social media has worked better than paid ads, now organic social media is a great way to get clients that know you, but it's not a really good actionable strategy. It's not scalable, right? And this is the same thing. People will come to me and they'll say, I have referrals. And I'm like, that's really lovely, but it's not scalable.
I just talked about this like 2 podcasts ago. So you're speaking my love language here.
Yeah. So if paid, so there's 2 things. We can go back into the pain of paid ads, and say like, okay, it hasn't worked, but maybe I still want to learn it and, etc. Or we can do earned media, which is like getting on other people's stages. So, going on other people's podcasts, doing that kind of thing. And so usually, and again, this is where the ADHD comes in, I tend to ask people what they enjoy doing the most, because a lot of times I'll find that, you've got the guy who just wants to sit in front of a spreadsheet all day, and then you've got the person who wants to talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny you said that, because getting on other podcasts is a strategy that I want to do. And I actually love being a guest on other podcasts.
Perfect. That's a great strategy. Yeah.
That would be a strategy. So I don't, obviously you have to like find the other, like you reached out to me, right? To be on the show.
Exactly.
I have to do that.
Whoa.
I have to find the podcast.
This is the thing. You don't have to do that. You have to delegate that task.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm getting to. So but currently no one's doing that task.
So the first job for your operations manager, and this is sometimes people get really confused because they're like, wait, but like, why would they do that? I'm like, well, this is the first job for the first person that you hire, is to fix the thing that's broken. So if the thing is leads and you decide, and again, this is one of the reasons I love what I do, because we're great divergent thinkers, but we just need to like pick a lane, because actually all 3 of these can work. It's really about what you want to do and what you want to scale. We would say, okay, this is the process that you want to build out and make really chunky. You want to get it to a place where you're emailing like 50 podcasts a day. You know exactly what kind of podcasts work. You've optimized your email strategy. You know your rate of return. That's when it's scalable, right? You can say, okay, I'm doing this and it's getting this result. So for your operations manager, and this might be a bit of a surprise for them, that's the most valuable ROI thing that they can do first for you.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, what about like, you sticking on this theme? I mean, there's podcast services out there that will get you booked on shows. You wouldn't necessarily go that route versus having my operations assistant do it?
I like to keep things in-house. And when I work with other entrepreneurs, and I've heard from mentors, it's really good to keep things in-house. The exception maybe is ads, but really like, again, we want to build you a simple process that you understand, but you have delegated. Because, for example, to give you a sense of that, like with the example of the podcast, because I can speak to this because I have a podcast, we get pitched all the time from people who, and they're terrible pitches, right? Have you ever liked those pitches?
Every day I get those.
Yeah, and they're all bad, almost entirely.
They're all templated.
Yeah, they're all templated and they're AI'd to, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, you can, but it's, again, you want a system that you can, I think this is something that maybe is particularly, I think you understand this, is like, you want a system that you can optimize and you can scale. And so and it's also like, it's not that expensive to hire somebody to like do the outreach once you've built the system. And again, I'm talking as somebody who has a program where we give you the template, we give you the SOP, we give you the AI to delegate, like give you those processes. So you're not going to, if you're listening to this and you don't have that, then yes, it's a lot more work because you have to figure out how to do it from scratch. And so you're going to want to hire somebody. But at the end of the day, keeping this stuff in-house is going to allow you to do the next level, which is what I teach, which is the leadership loop where you guys are working in public together. You have metrics, you have weekly meetings. Like that stuff is going to be harder and harder for an agency to pay attention to.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned a little bit. So my question would be, sticking with that theme of, being guests on a podcast, like if I were to start doing that, I really don't know where to start, right? Like I don't, how do I get email list? How do I find people? Do I just go on to Spotify and write down like, how do you do that? And then on top of that, how would I tell my operations assistant or give them advice on how to do that? Or do I just say, go figure this out and get me on shows? Like, how do you navigate that level of delegation?
Yeah, this is one of the things that we teach. So number one thing is, if you don't have a business mentor, find one. It took me way too long to get one, and I regret that. It's like my biggest regret in my business is not doing that, because they just have the answers to the questions. But outside of that, like we're talking about this particular method, it is, asking, if you wanted to, you could ask the AI, like, okay, give me a list of like 50 podcasts that I could go on that would be within this realm and this kind of thing that I'm looking for. You can use things like Podmatch as a good starter service for people. And then when it comes to your team, again, it's about creating, not giving them the template step by step, because that's very difficult, boring with ADHD, but more the North Star. Like, what does it look like when this is done? What's the definition of done? What is the metric that you're expecting? I need you to reach out to 30 podcasts a week. This is done once you have an example of the outreach system and, once you have those emails set up and all of that kind of stuff. And, then, meet with me if you have any questions. That's the kind of cadence that we do.
Gotcha. Okay. I like that. I mean, I've heard it before. I've kind of forgot about it. I love it. Defining what done looks like.
Oh yeah.
Or, what's the outcome? What is the,
and the metrics. Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of times people will be like, okay, well, what's done in terms of the output? And that's cool. But if somebody writes 50 terrible emails a week and nobody responds to them, like that's the problem. So we need to talk metrics as well. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I love that. I know we're getting a little close on time with your service and what you do. I mean, are you helping the, the CEOs, the owners, whatever with ADHD? Are you helping them like actually create the systems, or are you teaching them how to go about creating the systems?
It depends. So I have a couple of one-on-one spaces where I will create the systems. My team will create the systems for them. So, for example, we would talk to your team and we would build out the SOPs and we would meet with them, and then you would just need to check it. In my coaching program, which is what I do the most, I only have like 8 people a month joining that program because we want to cap it, because we do have the support. Basically, what we do is we take you through this process. So we start with a 2-week challenge. What's the thing that you could do? So for example, it would be the podcast outreach. We give you all the templates. We give you the AI chatbots that will talk you through how to do it so that you are doing it with somebody when you actually get to it. And then you meet with me and we go, okay, how do we scale this? And so that's the process that we teach. So a lot of it is about focusing you, helping you get your time back, and then helping you implement scalable systems that don't suck for your brain. Because a lot of times that's where people get lost. They're like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have enough time. And even if I did, somebody said something about building an SOP doc and I fell asleep, and I'd rather do anything than that. And this can keep people trapped when in fact, when I work with people and you unlock this stuff, you can go from, I don't have leads to I have too many leads in a month. It really does just depend on where you're at in your business and your ability to make those shifts, which is what we teach you to do.
Gotcha. And the course, or what you teach it's set up specifically with people with ADHD in terms of like how they, I don't want to say how they learn, but like how they function in life based on the.
Yeah. It's built from the ground up to do that. Yeah. We think about that a lot. Like every single piece of the business is designed for somebody who has a different kind of brain and struggles with ADHD symptoms, because a lot of times people will say, yeah, I spent $10K on business strategy, and now I have this document of business strategy, and I have never used it. And I know it will be good, but I don't know how to do it. And so that how is as important as the what.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about if someone doesn't have ADHD? I mean, could they still benefit from what you do?
If you struggle with ADHD symptoms, then 100%. If you don't struggle with ADHD symptoms, then I don't recommend you join our program. Okay. It's designed specifically for people who have ADHD struggles.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's, a lot of things to, eye-opening, understanding, like if you have ADHD and you feel like you live on an island or in a silo, know that there's a lot of people out there that are just like you.
Oh, yeah.
That are struggling. And then you can get support, for your business based on your brain. That's different. And you can talk to Skye and her team, and they can kind of help you organize that in your business.
Yeah. And outside of your business too. I mean, I have a lot of very happy family members when, they're like, you finally started coming home and not being in the work, like being present at home. Like those are the shifts that you see as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, even in my coaching program, a lot of that stuff with communication, effective communication, that all carries over into personal life 100%. So I always like to ask all my guests, what's a book that you would recommend or one that you're currently reading?
Oh, good question. I like reading a lot of books. Naval Ravikant, it's not really a book. It's like a podcast that was turned into a book, but Naval Ravikant's book is really good. I can't remember the name of it right now. Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time is really good. It's also designed, he has an ADHD brain, so it's quite ADHD friendly in that way. So that can be quite helpful when you're talking about delegation. So I think I would recommend those as like starter books.
Gotcha. I've read Dan Martell. Actually, I've given that book out to clients of mine. But I never heard of the other one, Naval Ravikant. How do you say it?
Yeah, Naval Ravikant. It's Naval Ravikant.
Okay, I got that down. I'll have to look into that. What's that about generally?
It's about it's basically about how to make money, how to create wealth. And he goes through like the different ways. It's interesting because he talks about this idea of like you can make wealth by just like creating a lot of energy around you, or you can make wealth by focusing on being the best at a strange thing. And I just think it's very ADHD friendly to think about that idea of like if you're the world's best deep sea diver, chances are someone's going to reach out to you and be like, hey, we need you to do something, And so it kind of like talks through that idea of making wealth inevitable by leaning into who you are, which is very helpful when you have ADHD.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I'll have to look that up. I like because I even like the energy part of it and really that means like if you have a lot of people that are excited about what you're doing and they're around you, like they're going to help you succeed, right? So back to the team. If you have a good team, they're going to help you succeed. So awesome.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, Skye, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll put it in the show notes, but give us a quick, how do they find you? Where can they go to find you?
Yeah. So I have a podcast, the ADHD Skills Lab. You can find any information there. We, interview entrepreneurs. We talk about ADHD research. It's a really great sort of one-stop shop if you're learning about your brain and how to build a business with your brain. You can also find me at Unconventional Organization, and you can message me, Brad, if you want the chatbot that will take you through how to focus when you're feeling overwhelmed. And then you can find me at Unconventional Organization in general. We have all our resources there.
So just to make sure, when you say message Brad, you're saying on what platform? Like email or
Instagram? Yeah, at Unconventional Organization on Instagram.
Okay, they go to
You just send me the word Brad.
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. They go to Instagram, find your account, which we can put in the show notes, and then just send you a message with the text Brad in there, and then they'll know that you came from my podcast.
That's how we'll know that you came here, and we'll give you that resource.
Awesome. And that was for the chat bot, right? That'll help you, or is that what that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. The focus formula.
Gotcha. Perfect. All right, Skye, thank you again for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
No worries. It was a really great conversation.
All right. Thank you, guys. That's the end of the show. You know where to find me on the socials. You can just search for the Hammer and Grind podcast. Make sure you go to the show notes and find out how you can get a hold of Skye and contact her. And until next time, remember, profit is not a dirty word.